Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to paint one of my favorite flowers, which are magnolia. I am going to paint a purple and white magnolia. We'll use a minimum number of colors. I have used the cobalt violet from the Mijello Mission Gold palette. You can use any bright violet which you have. You can also mix your own violet. Then I have used a cobalt blue and burnt sienna mix to create a ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mix to create a neutral gray color for the shadows. Also, I will use some ochre yellow for the stamens of the flowers for the central part. So I'm starting with the first petal. We will paint each petal individually and make sure the other petals nearby that petals are completely dry. So I'm painting the shadow with the gray mix here, and make sure your petal is not very wet. So I'm taking out the extra paint with the help of a damp brush, and also I'm putting a highlight with the help of a damp brush. I just lifted some paint, and also I have put some paint in the end of the petal. Now I'm painting the top petal of the right flower. Here I'm just putting some violet mix. I have not mixed any color here with that, and I'm just putting little bit because this is a base layer. We are not going to do it very dark. We want to keep the flowers as white as possible. Here I'm just putting little bit of shadow or the fold of the petal, and I have switched to a smaller brush. You can paint some of the highlights now with the deep purple, or you can paint it later also. So this is the same process which we are going to follow. We will put water on each petal, and then we will, as per the reference photo, we will either put a mix of gray and violet, or we will just paint with the pure violet color. We'll make sure that we have all values. So currently I'm painting the mid values, which is not too dark and not too light color. This petal is in the shadow, so I'm not going to use purple here. I will just, or violet here, I will just paint it with the shadow color, the gray mix which we have mixed with the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. So this is the gray which I use frequently for my shadows. You can experiment with some other grays also. You can mix any complementary colors and create your own gray mixes. So here this petal I have painted a bit different. I have dropped both the colors here, a little bit of gray, and then I have dropped a violet color here. And I'm trying to highlight the edges. I'm trying to put more color near the edges. You can refer the reference photo frequently so that you are not missing out on the value of the color or which color we should be using. And it is perfectly okay if it doesn't matches your reference photo. The reference photo is just to see the values and shadows and the base color. So we are going to repeat the same process for all the petals now. Just make sure whatever are the white highlights on the reference photo, you are able to put those highlights back. We should try to put more and more light into the painting, and we need to retain the white spaces for that. So on this petal I'm just putting some paint on the edges, and that's it, because this one is in the light. I have also added a little bit of ochre yellow here just for some variation. So if you can see this one, I'm just putting a deep mix only on the edges of the petal. That will give you very clean edges. And make sure you are using number 2 or number 3 brush, not more than that. This is around 5 into 7 inches of size, so I think it was not 5 into 7, I think it was a A4 size paper, so I'm using a number 2 brush for all the detailed washes. If you are painting it big, then you can use number 4 or number 6. So I'm repeating the same thing. I'm just wetting the petals, and then I am putting some color and then merging or blending the color with a damp brush. So in the base layer, we are not going to do any dry on wet or wet on dry. We will be painting wet on wet only. So this what I'm doing now is creating the highlights. So I've just taken a thin mix of violet and I'm just trying to paint some of the highlights for the right side flower. So some parts I have just I have just painted simply with some light mix, and I have not tried to do too much of shading or variation because I wanted to keep this tutorial very easy and not too tough. Just make sure that when you are painting one of the petals, the nearby petals are completely dry, else you are going to mess up your paint and you may create some blooms. Also in some places you can use some bright violet pure from the tube just to create some dark values also, and so that the flowers are not looking boring, they look interesting. So this is a similar petal. I have painted both the colors. I have just dropped them, so we are not painting all the petals in similar way, but we are trying to do some variation. So this petal is completely almost in shadow, so I have put very dark gray mix here, and this also is a good example of negative painting because the petal on top of this is light in color and we are painting with a dark pigment around it, so this is a good example of negative painting as well. You can experiment with I think you can experiment with red violet also, because magnolias come in many colors, so you can also experiment with some permanent maybe uh, uh, quinacridone crown rose or permanent rose or opera. So I think it comes in at least 10 to 12 colors, so you can experiment with a different set of shades also with the same reference. I have downloaded this reference from Pixabay, I think. So you can go ahead in Pixabay and search for any reference. I'll try to post a link of this reference photo, but I might have lost it. But I'll try to post a link of this link of this reference photo in the description. So I think we have done the first layer on almost all petals. I think so. So some of the petals may need 2 or 3 layers and some of them may not need any layers. So here if you can see, I am just trying to paint the fold of the petal. So what I'm doing, I'm just putting the pigment, and then on the edges I'm just blending the edges with a damp brush. If you want to merge the um, hard edges, you can use a damp brush. So here I'm pulling some details with a very dark violet pigment. So I'm not even wetting the whole petal. I'm just putting the wet on dry, and if required, I'm just softening the edges or lines with a damp brush. So here I'm not wetting those petals again. So for the center part, first I have just given a very light mix of yellow ochre, and I have also dropped in some of the violet in that, because they are not so bright, they are more towards a darker color. And while we are waiting for it to dry, I'm trying to put some more highlights or some more uh, uh, lines on the flowers. So while I still wait for the yellow ochre to dry, I'm trying to put a background. In this, I have tried a bit different background. So generally we do not leave whites in a background, but in this one, I'm trying something new, where I am just merging the background whites with a damp brush. And also if you can see, when I'm near to the flowers, I have switched to a very thin brush, because if you continue to use the thick brush, there are good chances that we may mess up the fine lines of the flower. The another way to handle this is, you can mask your flowers with the masking glue, and then you can paint your background first and then you can paint the flowers. But because here the flowers were pretty large, I have not used any masking fluid. I have just used uh, a thinner brush when I'm painting around the edges of the petals, so that I'm not messing up the hard edges of the petals. So this is a mix of Van Dyke green. You can choose any other green color, or you can also choose some light orange color, which is a complementary of violet. You can experiment with the background. I have just chosen a Van Dyke green. This is my favorite green for painting backgrounds, because it is already a little bit neutral green and it is not too bright. So also if you can see in between the flowers, whatever is the space, I'm putting a very dark Van Dyke green there, so that I'm able to highlight the beautiful hard edges of the flowers. So that is a basic principle in painting any background. When you paint background, make sure wherever your main subject has light value, you are painting a dark background, and wherever it has dark value, you are painting a light background, so that all the edges of your main subject are highlighted. And you can try the background color with the main color on a scrap piece of paper if you are not confident what color background you should put. So if you can see here, the small corners or the small spaces between the flowers, I have put it very dark. You can experiment with any other uh, greens. You can also experiment with some blue maybe. So it is not exactly similar to reference photo, but I have tried. And here I'm just putting one few more layers of the Van Dyke green uh, at edges or the corners, because I want to highlight them more.